Question is, do I know it? Maybe I forgot. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Śārīraka-bhāṣya Astotra to Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedānta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. And Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Śārīraka-bhāṣya Astotra to Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaiṣṇava ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. So first I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you, everybody, including online, those who are online. And we all have books. We're going to need books. We have books for them? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. keep losing the place. Is it number 6? 6, right? Thank you. Okay. We're on page 234. That is that one book. I think we have to, you may not have, Jesse, you've got it. You've got the one book. I can tell by the margins. Chapter 5, text 6. You can look in the gutter at the top. You can, chapter 5, text 6. Okay. Okay.
So, I'm sorry, what page?
234. Okay. Sorry about that. On this 13th day of July 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 5 entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And we're on text 6 in the middle of page 234 in most of your books. Sannyāsīs tu mahabāho dukkam aptum ayogataha yoga yukto munir brahma na chined adigacchati sannyāsastu mahabāho dukkam ayogataha yoga yukto munir brahma Nachedena digacchati sannyāsastu mahabāho dukkhamāptamayogataha yoga yukto manir brahma nachedena digacchati sannyāsastu mahabāho dukkhamāptamayogataha Yoga yukto manir brahma nachedena digacchati sannyāsastu mahabāho dukkhamāptamayogataha yoga yukto manir brahma nachedena digacchati sannyāsastu mahabāho dukkhamāptamayogataha yoga yukto manir brahma nachedena digacchati. Arjun. Sannyāsastu mahabāho dukkhamāptamayogataha yoga yukto manir brahma nachedena digacchati. Ahead, Arjun. Sannyāsastu mahabāho dukkhamāptamayogataha yoga yukto manir brahma nachedena digacchati. Okay, word by word. Sannyasa. I'll just read it myself. You read along. The renounced order of life. 2. But Mahabāho, Almighty Armed One. Dukkam, distress. Aptam, afflicts one with. Ayogataha, without devotional service. Yoga yuktaha, one engaged in devotional service. Munihi, a thinker. Brahma, the supreme. Nacharena, without delay. Adigacchati, attains. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. Purport. There are 2 classes of sannyāsīs, or persons in the renounced order of life. The Māyāvādī sannyāsīs are engaged in the study of Sāṅkhya philosophy, whereas the Vaiṣṇava sannyāsīs are engaged in the study of Bhagavatam philosophy, which affords the proper commentary on the Vedānta-sūtras. The Māyāvādī sannyāsīs also study the Vedānta-sūtras, but use their own commentary, called the Śārīraka-bhāṣya, written by Śaṅkarācārya. The students of the Bhagavat school are engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, according to pāñcarātrikī regulations, and therefore the Vaiṣṇava sannyāsīs have multiple engagements in the transcendental service of the Lord. The Vaiṣṇava sannyāsīs have nothing to do with material activities, and yet they perform various activities in their devotional service to the Lord. But the Māyāvādī sannyāsīs, engaged in the studies of Sāṅkhya and Vedānta and speculation, cannot relish the transcendental service of the Lord. Because their studies become very tedious, they sometimes become tired of Brahman speculation, and thus they take shelter of the Bhagavatam without proper understanding. Consequently, their study of the Srimad Bhagavatam becomes troublesome. Dry speculations and impersonal interpretations by artificial means are all useless for the Māyāvādī sannyāsīs. The Vaiṣṇava sannyāsīs who are engaged in devotional service are happy in the discharge of their transcendental duties, and they have the guarantee of ultimate entrance into the kingdom of God. The Māyāvādī sannyāsīs sometimes fall down from the path of self-realization and again enter into material activities of a philanthropic and altruistic nature, which are nothing but material engagements. Therefore, the conclusion is that those who are engaged in Krishna conscious activities are better situated than the sannyāsīs engaged in simple speculation about what is Brahman and what is not Brahman, although they too come to Krishna consciousness after many births. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. As I was reading that purport, I was just trying to imagine what it would be like if I was unfamiliar with all these terms and things like that. Are you familiar with these things, or is it just like a first time? Okay, and I don't know what I would be getting from that. So my job is to try to make it intelligible to first timers as well as old timers, the people who are familiar with some of these things. So let's see if I can help with that. So let's start with the title of the chapter, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So the premise of the Bhagavad Gita is that the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita say. And what does Bhagavad Gita mean? Bhagavad is a word for God in Sanskrit, and Gita means song. So it's a song of God. The people who are in the Vedic culture, who are familiar with the writings of the Vedas and the book called the Mahabharata, in which this Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters out of hundreds, small part of the book. They recognize that this Bhagavad Gita is not thought up by someone's speculation, but it's actually a record of the words of God. Just as we have in the Bible, there are places where God speaks, right? The Ten Commandments, something like that. And people accept, oh, this is authoritative. So what Krishna is presenting here first of all, this very dramatic scene, because it's on the battlefield. The last place you would expect a spiritual discourse to take place, that's where it's taking place. Very dramatic. So, but there's two protagonists, say, in this drama. One is Arjuna. Arjuna is a human being like us, but he's very exalted, and he's one of 5 brothers who are on, say, the side of good moral ethics. On the other side is the enemy, if you will, who are trying to usurp their rightful kingdom. Arjuna and his brothers rightfully inherited the kingdom. I won't get into the whole story. But Arjuna's elder brother, Yudhishthira, is morality personified, ethics personified. So Krishna, or God, is very concerned that good reign in the world, in the form of dharma. The word dharma, I'm sure, is an English word by now. Dharma has different meanings in English. In Sanskrit, what you probably know, this is Sanskrit that we were chanting here, and this mantra, the main mantra that everyone knows, is also in Sanskrit language. Dharma is based on a root of the word is called dri, which means that which sustains you. In other words, that which is the essence of something. I like to give an example of the chair. Now we have by Bhakta Joseph's largesse, we have these nice benches here. They have the same dharma as the chair. You sit on them and they support you. Right? There's the idea. The chair makes it more comfortable. You can sit. Yeah. So the dharma of the chair is to hold you up. You know, it may be a soft chair, maybe a hard chair, maybe a green chair, red, whatever it is. But the essence of a chair is that when you sit down in it, you're supported. You know, you sit on some of these chairs. We have some chairs that eventually wore out. You know, so they became dysfunctional. There'd be a crack and something. You know, but if someone unknowingly sits on the chair and it collapses, that chair has not been following its dharma. You see? Now everything has a dharma, like a roof, to stay up there. You know, it protects you from the rain. Right? It collapses. It's not even. So you can say that about anything that has a dharma. Then the real question is, what is our dharma? First of all, before you answer that, who are we, and what is our dharma as human beings or as living beings? That's an essential question. So Krishna begins the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2. He's instructing Arjuna. Arjuna is in a quandary because he's the lead fighter, a warrior on the side of good, the good guys. But on the other side, who he's about to fight with, they're all his friends and relatives. It's not like some strange enemy on the other side. They're intimate associates and friends and cousins and people like that. And on the other side is his beloved teacher who taught him martial arts, if you will. And also his grandfather, or the elder person who took the role of his grandfather when his own father died untimely. So he's torn. I don't want to fight. Who cares about this kingdom? If I win the battle, great, I'll have this kingdom, but it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love. To heck with it, I don't want to fight. But this was a culminating battle in Krishna's plan to reinstitute Dharma in the world. So his friend and guru, he accepts him as a guru, wants him to fight. So now his gut reaction is, I don't want this fight. On a material level, it was an anathema to him. It was horrible. But he recognized, but it's ultimately necessary to reinstitute good in the world. So he's like paralyzed. And he pleads to Krishna, please instruct me now. Let me know what the truth is. What is the ultimate instruction? What do you want? So he surrenders to him as a guru. So Krishna now begins his instruction in chapter 2. And his first point is very important, establishing what we really are in essence. Because most people don't know. I didn't know. I had no idea. When I was growing up in America, you know, I grew up in New York. I joined this movement at about age 25, and that was almost 50 years ago. But I was into philosophy, reading this and that and this and that, but I was under the misconception that my real, who I was, okay, I was a 20-year-old, student in NYU at one point. You know, and a member of this family. My mother showed me our family tree. You know, this is who I am. I'm American. Like I got an American, license. I got 18 years old. But that's just the body. That's the body. Krishna's point, the whole point in the second chapter, he has like 20 or 30 verses, the lesson on the soul. And the main, the thing you learn, like on day 1 or day 2 when you join the Hare Krishnas, you're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, Krishna he teaches us by some rudimentary verses how we can intuit that. And one is, which I gave last night, but we have some new people, so bear with me. Let's just review our life. Everyone can go back and remember like the first things you remembered, maybe age 5, 6. We all have highlights, having fun in Disney World or whatever it was, with our family. Right? There were certain high points memories, some of them like painful, But I remember when I was like 4 or 5, So we had a different body, naturally, small, and our mind was different also. different, and then we gradually changed. So who can deny it? The body changed, and then we became a little older, eventually adolescents, and then adults. Now I'm an old codger, and it happens to everybody. You have two choices. You can tragically die untimely, or you can go through middle age, old age, and go through that scene. But one way or another, you can see that you're constantly your body's changing slowly, but it's obviously changing. But you're staying the same. You're still the knower of the body. You are the conscious being within that body that knows the pains and pleasures of the body and so many other things. So the body changes, but you don't. You're the soul or the Atma that knows the body, called the knower of the field in chapter 13. That's the first lesson. But 1 second, Paul. Good to see you again, buddy. You'll have time for questions. But a key element of this is that the soul is observing all these changes of the body going through. The soul doesn't die. When the body expires eventually, the soul goes on. And another key element of this is that we have a subtle body. We all know it, we just not call it that. But the mind, the intelligence, it's called the ego, very fine. That doesn't die when the gross body dies. That will take us to another body and we'll start again. Hopefully a human body, but it may not be a human body. All these living entities we see, these organisms, say, there's the fish, thousands of fish. I know many of them are becoming extinct now, but there's millions in different varieties. They're all living entities, like us, in that they're gross bodies with spirit soul inside, knowing the body. The body may be a body of a dog, a cat, a bird, an insect, whatever it is. And the consciousness become very, very covered. These plants out here, they're also alive. The tree grows, you see, but the consciousness is very, very rudimentary and covered. But still there's a soul in there. And when that tree that cuts down or when it dies, burns, whatever it is, that soul will be liberated and go on to another, up, all the way automatically to human beings. And in human life, we have the big brain and the intelligence, and we can, we don't just have to react, by instinct, or reflexively, but we can think, what is the best thing for me? What is the good? And ask the questions, where did I come from? What's the meaning of all this? How can I this is every species, how can I minimize my suffering and maximize my happiness? Can I escape from this round of birth and death, birth, old age, disease, and death? Birth, old age, disease, and death. It's been going on for millions of years. We forget, but it's been going on. We all have a huge past. So that's the first lesson. And if we can accept that, we see that changes everything. Because as logical, reasoning human beings, we should want to act in such a way that we move toward that goal of getting free from birth and death and return to that paradise from which we left. Now, we may not believe in that, and therefore we need to hear from what we call realized souls, acharyas, great yogis, and those who have had revelation of these truths. Now, this is where faith comes in, obviously. But Krishna consciousness is so logical, and by accepting the process, one can begin to intuit the reality of it. This process of chanting Hare Krishna. It's a process of yoga, of connecting. This is Krishna keeps talking about yoga here. That sannyas, now back to our verse here. What he's saying is sannyas means serious renunciation, because one of the principles of karma and reincarnation is that we, without being oriented spiritually, we are absorbed in matter, varieties of matter. Some of them very subtle and stimuli. And when something is pleasurable, it may be on a subtle level or maybe on a gross level, we want to do that again and again. We want to increase that. And we want to avoid the pain. Who can deny it? That's like basic principle. So the sannyas principle, this means full renunciation, it means that we don't want to cultivate more and more attachments for this world that will then bring us back. Because those attachments stay in the mind. Remember, the mind doesn't die. If your mind is filled with all kinds of unfulfilled desires, which it must be on the material plane, then those will bring you back. And it's very complicated because it also has to do with your karma. That's another, the karma that stays with you. So we need a process by which we can gradually change or purify our attachments. And that's why the end point of this whole process is not simply, ending our individual existence and merging into Brahman, or becoming just like a permanent state in a sensory deprivation chamber. I've never been in one. Have you ever been in one? Isn't the way you lie back? It's perfect temperature. It's fantastic. Yeah, but you're not in one now, so you had to end it. Eventually, you have to come out. See, but imagine, that's the thing. Oh, okay. Now I'm free. No more attachments. I can just lie here, and I don't have to think about anything like that. But it's unnatural for the soul. You can't stay in there at a certain place. Let me out of here. I gotta go to work or something like that. Right? Or I'm hungry. So the point is that that's not going to work. It's not a question of negating. It's a question of purifying. And so that's why it says sannyas, with renunciation, means minimizing your attachments. Without yoga, simply brings dukkha, means suffering. It's not unactivity, but it's pure activity that we need. We need wholesome activity that's purifying for the soul and purifying for the senses and mind, and bringing us back to that state that we've lost, which is a state of whatever you want to call it, samadhi, satori, nirvana, or pure bhakti and prema bhakti. That's pure love for God. So what Krishna is saying here, that renunciation alone is not going to help. Yoga yuktu, but being linked up to the Supreme through yoga, bhakti yoga, the yoga of loving devotion, that you'll achieve Brahma, you'll achieve the supreme state of consciousness without delay. Without delay means hopefully in this very lifetime. So that's what bhakti is. It will gradually become clear as we go through the Bhagavad Gita that the best way, the most efficient and wholesome form of yoga is bhakti yoga, yoga of loving devotion to the Supreme. And it's possible. In the next chapter, Krishna will describe traditional yoga. Everyone knows about, the yogi. I tried it when I was young. I meditated. I got through about maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes max. And then I got to work. That was another thing. But it's not possible. It's not possible to do that in this age. It's just too disturbed. And our bodies and our whole lifestyle is not suited to it. So what, are we out in the cold? Is there no yoga that we can practice? There is a yoga. It's this bhakti yoga, which is filled with all kinds of activities. Just like we're known for, chanting and dancing and chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. So there's no inactivity there. Hey, Bhakta Bab, come on, stand up, dance, It's not that meditating. But it is connection. The whole point is the sound vibration, the pure sound of the holy name is purifying. The more that we chant and the right attitude and the knowledge we cultivate, we become more and more peaceful and more blissful, and it works. And that was kind of as introductory as I could give it, because it's not. But that's this is chapter 5. There's so many other lessons we've learned here. But it's all coming to the point that the essence of the whole thing is in the last two verses, almost the last two verses in the chapter 18. So I'll give you a coming attraction. The whole Gita can be summarized in these two verses. I put them into a poem. So the Sanskrit goes, Manmana bhava makto majjajina namaskaru mame vaishasi satyam te pratijane piyosime. So Krishna says, this is the most confidential knowledge. I'm summarizing now. He says, now, just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You'll come to me, O friend, I promise you this boon I shall bestow. Then the next verse he says, give up all other dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjun, from anxiety be free. So Krishna is saying, just come back to me and learn how to connect with me at every moment, and then your troubles will be over. You won't come back again. You won't have to take birth in a physical body and suffer old age, disease, and death. And now I'm ready for your question, Paul. You need a mic.
So a few weeks ago, I was looking in the back in the where you find the words in the Gita.
Oh, glossary?
Glossary, yeah. And I was looking up different versions of what is called the soul. So you had mentioned Atma, and there was a Jiva.
Like sometimes called Jivatma, yeah.
Jivatma, right. And then Purusha.
Purusha is another word. I can explain how that works, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So you want to know what's the nuances of the difference here? Okay, so Atma simply means the self. It also refers to the super self. There's the Atma and the Paramatma, right? Atma, the same. So Atma means soul, a conscious living being, without the accoutrements of a physical body. The Atma is the pure spirit, Jivatma specifically refers to that infinitesimal quantum of consciousness that we are, probably called part and parcel. And we're very tiny, but we're indestructible particles of consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. All right. Welcome. Do we have any more books? Okay. Here, we're reading Bhagavad Gita. Take one book.
Thank you.
Do we need more books? We need no more books? Okay, we'll give you a book too. So you have the page there, page 234. So now the Purusha refers to an enjoyer. We're by nature not the supreme enjoyer. We enjoy by giving God enjoyment. That's our supreme enjoyment. I mean we don't know that yet. We're thinking that enjoyment has to do with somehow making our senses pleased or our mind, but that's temporary. In the Vedic writings, real happiness, the standard is permanent, eternal, ever increasing. You don't find that in this material world. Have you noticed? You know, you may find something very nice to eat. Oh, this is great. My favorite, pancake, whatever it may be. But there's a limit. I just thought of it. My father used to make pancakes every Sunday morning. The butter is there, the maple syrup, everything. But there's only so many you can eat, right? I mean, then if you eat more, you suffer. So that's the way it is with sense gratification. There's pleasure there, but there's a limit. There's a time limit, and there's a limit to your senses, obviously, the body. No one can deny it. But in spiritual enjoyment, it's not like that. Because Krishna is unlimited. And he enjoys unlimitedly. Why not? If you were God, wouldn't you want to do that? Yes. But how does he do that? He enjoys by loving exchange with all of his servants and friends and lovers there and parents in the spiritual world. And we also we try to do that also, right? I mean, real happiness here, it's come, through family. It's not just sense gratification, but there's the children and the whole thing, the relationships. But they're temporary. They're temporary. They only last for so long. I remember my mother. My mother passed away at 96. And I used to visit her back in the 80s. I was living in Miami working on the Srimad Bhagavatam with a couple of associates, Gopi-Pranadhana Prabhu and Vidyananda Das Goswami. But every so often I would get a cheap flight. In those days they had these flights, I forget what it was called, $65 round trip from Miami to New York. Huh? No, it wasn't called Super Savers. It was a certain airline. They went out of business, obviously. But anyway, I used to jump on that plane and visit her, and she still regarded me as there was a lot of it like I was still 16, and as long as I was happy and healthy, and she could feed me something, okay, make me some potatoes. Mashed potatoes is my favorite, because I'm vegetarian and all that. we're still enjoying that rasa, to some degree. That's the idea. But how long did it last? Eventually, she passed away. And so that's the Purusha. There's a verse I like to quote from the 13th chapter, Paul, and this we as jivas are trying to act as Purushas, as the supreme enjoyer. So it says, Purushak pakatisto hi bhunkte pakati jan gunan karanang gunasangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. Very revealing. So the jiva acting as Purusha, acting as the enjoyer in this verse, is in Prakriti. Prakriti is material nature. Prakritisto hi. Bhunkte here means experiencing. Prakriti janganan, he experiences what is called the modes of nature. This is another lesson that's a little complicated to go into at this time. But we're all familiar with them. We may not know, we may not call them that, but say the mode of passion. A pure example would be someone gets out of MIT, and immediately heads to Wall Street. He's got, a degree in math, and he wants to make $1 million. Why $1 million? Let me see if I can become a billionaire. And so he'll take a job as an intern right in Wall Street, minimal salary, so he can learn the ropes and all of these things. Mode of passion, I mean, he's a young man, he's enjoying all kinds of ways and wants to enjoy even more. So that desire to enjoy the senses and explore, that's the mode of passion. When it becomes too much, I just gotta, sleep. Let me sleep through it all, I mean, he broke up with me, she broke up with me, enough. Let me just get drunk, take a sleep it off. Mode of ignorance. Maybe you've heard of someone like that. We may have been through that phase ourselves or something. Mode of goodness. Let me, think a little bit about what's the meaning, what's going on. Let me get away from it. I'll go out into the woods and read a book, Immanuel Kant or something, This is like the mode of goodness, where you become more reflective and peaceful and intellectual. But on the material sphere, the mode of goodness is oftentimes contaminated with a little mode of passion and ignorance. It's never pure. So these modes are the way in which the material energy interacts with the mind. And so the living entity in the material modes, as we interact with them, Purusha bhunkte prakriti jana karanang gunasangosya. Karana means the cause, and gunasanga means the association with these modes. So as we associate with the modes, that determines our future, our destiny, which means our next birth. Our next birth. That's the basic principle. We are eternal souls. We're never born, never die. So what determines what kind of body we get next? Our activities in this life. This is the basic principle. So we want to act in such a way that we'll get the best next body. The best next body is not material at all. It's purely spiritual. We all have a spiritual body that's covered now. Because we're conditioned souls. So Krishna consciousness is a process of uncovering or purification by the steps and the systematic process of bhakti yoga, beginning with the chanting of this holy name, this Hare Krishna mantra. This is a special mantra called the Maha Mantra. Mantra, the very word mantra, it means mind delivering sound vibration. Mantra, man means mind and tra means to deliver. So deliver the mind from what? From the thrall of material energy. From all this attraction and repulsion and confusion and anxiety. This mind. The mind can be the best friend, Krishna says in the Gita, or it could be our worst enemy. The mind that's absorbed in Krishna consciousness, in the philosophy, in inquiry into the Absolute, is our best friend. But that mind that is dragging us here and there to enjoy this, and then there's the opposite side. Let me get away from that. It's too dangerous. That mind is our worst enemy. So how do we get hold of that mind? Through the process of transcendental sound. That's the idea. So the Jiva Atma is a description. But the Purusha, the living entity who acts as an enjoyer and controller in this world, is called the Purusha. But it's an unnatural position. So, but in any case, we remain infinitesimal. And we have to take shelter of a higher power. Either it's going to be this material energy we identify with, which is not our friend, which is suffering, or It's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is our eternal friend. The last verse in this chapter, Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagitapasam sarvaloka maheshwadam suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantam richati. How to attain shanti, how to attain peace in this world. Very difficult. You think you got it together peaceful, then suddenly a war breaks out in Europe, and yeah, we got, I mean, the nuclear weapons, they're still there. Where's the peace? How can you be at peace? It's not going to work just to forget about it or try to, you know. So how can you be peaceful even when there's so much disturbance? When you understand, yes, this is all temporary, but I'm fixing my mind on the eternal, and when I leave this body, I'm out of here. I'm out of this material world, and I'm going back home, back to Godhead, back to paradise. That's the way to be confident. How to get to that point. So Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, our wonderful, merciful spiritual master, has given us all these books. This is our basic book, Bhagavad Gita, but there's so many others. Could we read how we can practice this process? And hearing about Krishna, reading the books, this is an important part of Bhakti Yoga. This is cultivating knowledge. So I know we could, there's so many other ways we can explore that, but I'd like to go on to the next verse, if possible. Okay, here we go. Text 7. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha sarvabhutatma bhutatma kurvannapi nilipyate. Talk about Atma here. There's 4 Atmas in that one verse. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man, such a person, is never entangled. Purport. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches, or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, he is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he's pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled, and because his mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of his being deviated from Krishna. Nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna, and he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive, because, as has already been explained in the 2nd chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually, as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed. Dresses means body. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. So he's giving a contrast here in the 6 and 7. In 6 you have a renunciant, the sannyas, who's not in yoga. And it simply brings dukkha. It simply means unhappiness. We may know that I have to get rid of these attachments for all the things in this world, so I'm just going to hide away in a room somewhere, blank walls, and that way I'll remain detached. But you won't. You'll go nuts. You know, you need to redirect the attachment, and that's why Krishna is the center of our yoga, because Krishna means all attractive. Krishna, the very word Krishna, means he attracts him. And how is he attractive? This is the wonderful contrast between this knowledge and the science we have and other dharmas or religions, that the details, what does God look like? What is his personality like? What is he doing in the spiritual world? And what is the relation with us? Isn't it wonderful to know that God loves us, each as individuals, not just as some mass, like I love humanity. It doesn't work like that. But because he's infinite, he can love it personally. He's concerned, and that's why he comes here. Just 500 years ago, well, let's fight 535 years ago about it. He came as Lord Chaitanya to spread this chanting. He said, "These Kali Yugas, they'll never practice this Ashtanga yoga. No way they're going to go alone to the Himalayas, We need a process that they can practice by the thousands, The more the merrier." And a huge kirtan. I think right now is the season. I think they just had the return Ratha Yatra coming back. They finally, I think they canceled it because of COVID. Huge festival. Because last year it was an emergency all over the world, in India also. But Ratha Yatra, we have a small one here every April around Earth Day. But those of you interested, the huge festival going to happen in Los Angeles on Venice Beach on August 7th, Sunday. I think it's 7th Sunday. For the first time in 3 years, it should be huge. Come, everyone chant. Huh?
35,000.
They're expecting 35,000. Okay, that'll be uniquely big. So, but in Orissa, in Puri, 1 million come. 1 million people come, all chanting this mantra. You can imagine. That's yoga. Everyone's in perfect yoga. They're not, having to sit and hurt their knees or anything. Hare Krishna. And anyone can practice. It doesn't matter. You could be the most sinful person. There's no prerequisite at all. Lord Chaitanya says in his famous song, Shikshastika, 8 verses of instruction on the holy name. He said, Nam namakadi bahudani dasarva shaktis tattapitani amitak smaranena kalaha. Eta dushita vakripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiv midisha mehajani nanuraga. So Krishna, Lord Chaitanya is taking the role of someone who's aspiring to be a devotee but is lamenting, I really haven't gotten any taste for the holy name yet. He's God, he's taking that role. So he says, Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potency, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace, but I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name. He's taking the role of someone. So how to develop the taste? Trinarapi sunichena, tororapi sahishnana, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadahari. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. To think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant his name incessantly until the final hour. So this is a very important verse. Because we're so desperate in this age, we don't live very long, a very confused age. Therefore, we have the process. But we have to take it and call out to Krishna through the holy name. Please save me. That's the prayer. Please engage me in your service and take me back to Godhead. It's like the last will be first and the first will be last. Isn't that in the Bible? Those who recognize, we're so desperate, I'm totally unqualified, but please, like that. You have a question. But you need to you need to use the mic, because I'm sure it's a good question. It's right here.
What about those in the middle?
Those who are in the middle?
Neither first nor last, but still in the process.
Yeah, believe me, in this Kali Yuga, we're all at last. We're still here. Everybody else went back to God. We're last. The point is that we should recognize how dangerous this age is, how short our life is, and how lucky we are that we've been given this knowledge, and if we just take advantage. We don't have to accept the whole thing at one time. Just read carefully and begin chanting a little bit, try it out, and it's beneficial to everybody. So here on the present verse we just read, as it contrasts the sannyasi who's not in yoga, he just gets misery. But yoga yukta, one who is in yoga, engaged in yoga, vishuddhatma. Vishuddha means purified. The atma, the soul, becomes purified. Of what? Again, all these attachments, these fears, the ignorance. Vijitatma, self-control. Atma means, by the way, Paul, Atma can mean different things. It can be in the soul, It can mean the body. It can mean the mind. It can mean the intelligence. In general, it means the self, or the important aspect of the self. So purifying the being, the soul who's becoming purified by yoga, controlling the urges of the senses. We know we have to do that anyway. If you got to go to work, you know you have to get up, you know, and you have to do it necessary to get into the car and all so many things. So you have to control. If you're out of control, you lose your job. So vijitatma, yes, controlling the mind and the senses, jitendriya, controlling the senses. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma, to be, what does it say? To be, what does it say? Pure, who controls his mind, is dear to everyone, everyone is dear to him. He's seeing everyone as a part of God, as a brother, sister. This is the true nature of real brotherhood in the world. Just like here, there's people of all ages and colors and nationalities. We have a Russian over there, and he's not Russian anymore, but he's from Russia, right? We have so many Americans, Indians. Who cares? I go to this festival. I haven't been going for a few years, but in Mayapur, you go there. There's huge Chinese contingent, Russian contingent. There's some African, there's some Americans. It's like and everyone's chatting and dancing. No one says, "Oh, I don't know what this guy. He's Chinese." No, everybody. You know, Haribol. We're all spirit souls, right? It's just we're wearing different dresses. Big deal. Who cares? You know, you have a red shirt, I have a green shirt. That when you see that the body is just external. You don't identify. So that's sarva bhutatma bhutatma. Kurvan up in the lipyate, then it doesn't get entangled. It doesn't get entangled in this world. You get disentangled. We want to, get out of the thrall of Maya's, talons that we've been in. And this is the way to do it. Krishna can give us that freedom. He says that in the 7th chapter. Hare Krishna. All right. Any other questions, comments?
In the purport, Prabhupada's talking about how spiritually nobody was actually killed on the battlefield. So it's almost like, well, if we are not spiritually killed, then what is really the point of our actions, really? Like, if we're not killed, or if... Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, the point is that, when you hear about the Battle of Kurukshetra, it's pretty gruesome. Millions and millions of soldiers killed. I mean, Yudhishthira was devastated. All these soldiers, not just the soldiers, but the elephants, the horses, all these living entities killed. But first of all, because Krishna was there, they all went back to Godhead. That's the first thing. They're blessed. Even though, there's that, of course, the trauma of death, but then that's over. And you're out of the body, and you're on your way back to Godhead. That's the first thing to understand. But not spiritually, that you can't be killed spiritually. Jayate mriyate vakadacha. This is a central verse in the 2nd chapter, text 20. The jayate mriyate vakadacha. The soul is never born, jayate, never dies. And he keeps in, Nayam bhutva bhavitanalabuya. It's not that how the new souls are coming into being. We're as eternal as God is. There's uncounted trillions of them, and we all have existed past, now, and in the future. Ajo, nitya, shashvata, purana. We're unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. The living entity, the Atma, is not slain when the body is slain. In so many ways, he says the same thing again and again, hammering it in. Therefore, death is simply a change of dress. Krishna uses that very analogy. We all have different dresses on. Right? At a certain point, you have different clothes. It wears out, you have to discard it. Your body wears out, you have to discard it. But that doesn't mean you're dead. Then you go get some new clothes. Similarly, get a new body. But that body is according to your actions and your karma. It's complicated. So therefore, we should use our intelligence. Between now and when we have to give up these clothes of the body, we should act in such a way that we won't have to take another one. It's as simple as that. And that's, pure Krishna consciousness. And the wonderful thing is, you never lose it. Everything in materially, you lose it. You work so hard, you make some money, you got a little money in the bank. Oh, I got some equity in my house, But then you're getting older. Okay, my children, yeah, but you don't even be conscious of that relationship when you leave. And you leave everything, every last thing that you have materially is gone. And all you have left is your consciousness and your karma and what you cultivated. And that's where you're going, you know. So why not put your assets, invest in that which you can never lose. Krishna says right in the second chapter, in this endeavor, there's no loss and no diminution. Someone here came to the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, Bhagavad Gita class. You'll never lose that. That's in your bank account, your spiritual bank account. You're sure to have a human life in your next life. You may take one class, you'll attend the second class. You'll have 18 next lifetime. But why prolong the agony? Why not continue? You know, why not complete the course of yoga, so that your entire being is always linked up to Krishna in activities, and you're in a state of endless happiness and bliss. So I know it's a little late, but I'm going to end with one little shloka, if you will. So this is a verse about the holy name. It's a verse written by Sanatana Goswami. This is his disappearance day. Means that he left his body. One of our great acharyas, our great teachers, he lived in the 15th century and 16th. So he writes in his main book, Brihad Bhagavatam, he says, Jayati Jayati Namananda Rupam Morare Vinamita Nija Dharma Jana Pujadi Yatnam Katamapi Sakadatam Muktidam Praninam Yad Padamamamitam Ekam Jivanam Bhushanam Me. So I don't have a poem for this one, although I should. He says, O glories to the holy name of Krishna, or known as Murari, the enemy of Mura demon, which is the very form, Namananda Rupam. Ananda Rupa means the very form of bliss. In other words, the name itself is bliss itself, when you perceive it properly. And then if one chants it, then he becomes indifferent to material activities. Ordinary puja of the demigods or meditation or all these things. You become disinterested in that. You know that that's not going to help you. If somehow or other a living being utters the holy name even once, Katamapi Sakrid means once, Ata Muktidam, you'll get liberation. Now, that seems incredible. How's that? I mean, because you're liberated, but the momentum of your material desires are still going on. If you don't act fruitively after that, you're free. But you start a whole new process. So therefore we need, but it's so powerful that it eliminates eons of karma. You know, Praninam yat padamamamitamekam. It is my supreme and soul nectar and energy, and my greatest treasure, my only wealth, and my only ornament. He's saying. So this is the great souls. They recognize the Hare Krishna mantra for what it is. So it's free. Take it and enjoy. So we'll have another class starting on Monday. But tomorrow we have the lounge. So you're all welcome. This is a little different. Right next door, we all chant a lot of chanting. Not so much heavy philosophy, but a little discourse. And a nice free vegan feast. So please all come back and go into the lounge and enjoy. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. And those online, thank you for attending also. I'll never understand why sometimes there's 4 people here and sometimes there's 40 people here. But thank you all for coming on this glorious Wednesday. He's here for 30 years. He never, literally, he's been here.